Hello, my name is Manuel Morales. My research over the past 2 decades has focused on predetermined events, otherwise known as destiny, or in physical terms, superdeterminism. I will refrain from discussing the theories involved. Instead, I wish to focus on experimentation. After all, what good are theories if they cannot be tested? 12 years ago, I presented my initial findings of the 10th Destiny experiment at the 2011 APS April meeting. As titled, my research is about predetermined events. At the conclusion of the 10th Destiny experiment in 2012, I applied my finding to CERN's Higgs boson experiment and found that they did not factor which predetermined variables of motion cause the decay products used as evidence for their discovery. In order to establish external validity of the 10th Destiny experiment, I designed a test to see if motion caused effects of existence. I named this test the final selection experiment and included it in my paper titled Spin States Selection Predetermined Variables of Bit. At the top highlighted area, I showed how this could serve as a predictive model. And at the bottom, I highlighted the area of the final selection experiment. As Bell had expressed, this theorem had a catastrophic loophole, the loophole of a superdeterministic universe, that if valid, would prove that quantum mechanics is not a fundamental theory due to predetermined hidden variables. Obviously, this is something of major concern for all physicists, not only just physicists, but also scientists as well. This affects the scientific methods we use. The 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics is for experiments that closed Bell loopholes, thus leading the way for technology based on quantum mechanics. For me, this award raised some serious questions. Did the experimenters test for superdeterminism as Bell had defined? Earlier this month at the live session of the APS March meeting on March 9th, I got the answer to my question. As Anton Zeilinger mentioned, there is no reason to do experiments if everything is predetermined, so why bother? In the 10th Destiny experiment, unambiguous empirical evidence confirmed that the non-local functions of motion, direct selection and indirect selection, can only come to exist. I defined direct selection as motion paired with a single potential function, and indirect selection as motion paired with more than one potential function. I elaborate on this further in my papers, as you can see here with the physics of predetermined events, complementary states of choice chance mechanics. As an entity of a superdeterministic universe, you can use your own existence to test if direct selection and indirect selection, what we think of as choice, is a freedom or a predetermined necessary function. You wake up one morning and find yourself completely paralyzed. This means that you cannot directly select to talk, eat food, drink fluids, go to the bathroom, etc. Nor can anyone else indirectly select for you. Can you continue your freedom of choice existence in real life without the source of your existence, aka motion? The answer is self-evident. Bell's prediction of a superdeterministic universe is now confirmed. Your existence and that of all humanity confirms without ambiguity that the acts of selection are non-local mechanisms predetermined by nature, not locally determined by the experimenter. So what does this all mean? A selection is a function that can only come to exist. This means that what we think of as choice are actually predetermined hidden variables such that they cannot pre-exist or be existent. As such, they cannot be local hidden variables. Therefore, causation is a non-local function of a superdeterministic universe. Where do we go from here? Well, since we can't change nature, we might as well at least work with it. The two mutually exclusive and jointly exhaustive non-local functions of motion, direct selection and indirect selection, are necessary to conduct all local experiments. Therefore, the experimenter must decide which of the two selection functions are required to conduct his or her experiment. Case in point, all experimenters must use indirect selection to conduct Bell experiments. For example, the beam splitter. All empirical evidence is created by two mutually exclusive functions. Therefore, failed experiments and successful experiments are determined by the same selection functions as applied. So if we look back at our experiments, and instead of just seeing them as failed or successful, but look at them as how this selection function got this result and this selection function got this result, we can then actually figure out better how nature works by using the laws of nature instead of how we want it to be interpreted. For example, indirect selection events hide direct selection events. This is not a prediction because it's actually been verified in the 10th Destiny experiment. All empirical evidence is created by two mutually exclusive selection functions. So imagine over 24 Large Hadron Collider experiments running 24/7, 365 days a year, simultaneously worldwide. Now take that data set and look for how the data was generated. As I did, I found direct and selection variables was the source of all the other data that they generated. So there is a future here, folks. Time to look at nature in a slightly different way. Ambiguous empirical evidence supports scientific theories. Unambiguous empirical evidence confirms the laws of nature. Which scientific method would you prefer to use? If you'd like to have more information about my papers and the presentations I've attended, please review the information at 10thdestiny.com, science.html. Thank you very much for your time and consideration, and I hope you have found this information of interest.